Brunch sounds really good. They actually have a brunch there. I think it's the second Sunday of every month. I just keep forgetting to make the reservations. But then again, brunch really hasn't been on my menu for several months. I wanted to tell you about the total body transformation system, which has allowed me to drop a good 12 inches off my waist, 4 inches off my neck, 10 inches around my chest. How did I go about doing this? Well, I wanted to point out this is not some sort of fad or yo yo diet. It's not one of those dangerous starvation diets that some people put you on. Actually, the total body transformation system is scientifically proven. It's backed up by scientific research, medical professionals who say this is a healthy way to approach weight loss. In fact, I wanted to point out that the meal replacement plan is generally healthier than a lot of the meals that you've actually been eating. Also, it's about the same when it comes to cost as the meals that you'll be replacing, and you still get to have a healthy amount of calories every day. The system is proven, and I've talked to people about this who've had some similar success. Burn 6 times more fat and 8 times more weight than normal results from diet and exercise alone. And the average participant, we've been telling you, in 60 days will lose 22 pounds and in 60 days, 4 inches off his or her waist. And I do want to mention as well, if you'd like to know more, contact Don Chandler. Don is actually a customer himself. That's how he got interested in all of this, and now he's trying to share this with other people. Don is here in Twin Falls. You can reach him at this number, 208-731-3560. Once more, Don Chandler, and he's at 731-3560. Telephone number to reach our program this morning, News Radio 1310 KLAX, newsradio1310.com. Top story with Bill Colley. The number is 736-0300, 736-0300. Caller, you're on the air. You're up next. Well, you were pretty close. We'll try this line. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Good morning, Bill.
Morning.
You kind of hit a nerve there. You probably noticed that the hypocrites in Sun Valley area there voted out that Camp Rainbow Gold. They're always about doing the right thing until it's in their backyard, and then all of a sudden we're concerned about too much traffic. My question is, if it was a gay, lesbian, transgender, the true rainbow, would they welcome it then and let it be put there? I'd like to hear your opinion on that. Thank you.
It reminds me of a story. I lived in Vermont for about a year, right at the turn of this current century. And I can remember it was 500,000 people, I think was the population at the time, but can't be a whole lot bigger. It's not a very big state. Then you had the old time Yankee Republicans who aren't necessarily terribly conservative. They have a very popular Republican governor at the moment. I should mention that. But the state had been overrun by hippies who came up there in 1968 with their Volkswagen vans and then decided never to leave. I used to drive by this house that this guy had built out of used materials, and he was always featured as being environmentally friendly. And what he did is he had a huge baking kiln outside, so he could fire pottery and then sell it to tourists. That's supposedly how he made his living. It was filled with those type of dope smoking, granola chomping, Volvo driving liberals that you see in Oregon and parts of throughout the West Coast, the coastal regions. And I'll never forget there was a woman who decided she was going to, instead of using her dryer to dry her clothes, she was going to hang them out back and let them dry on clotheslines. Because running a dryer it sucks up a lot of electricity. So if you're an environmentalist, you shouldn't even own one. Well, her local neighborhood wackos decided it was unsightly to see somebody's, drawers flapping out there in the wind. This from the free love generation, we should point out. And so they objected, and they ended up taking her to the town council, and of course she was hit with a fine. And her argument was, well, I'm trying to save the environment, but unfortunately everybody else should be saving the environment, just not in that neighborhood. You see, because they get a pass. They're special because they think the right way according to themselves, because they're right-minded. They get a pass, and they don't have to do it. They just advise the rest of us that we should do it. And that's what you get out of places like Sun Valley. You get the same sort of granola-chomping idiots that populate the state of Vermont. And we're stuck with them. Unfortunately, we've got to figure out a way to live with them. And if we have to put up a wall, I guess, around there, maybe. Well, they wouldn't mind that either. They don't want a wall along the southern border, but they if they could keep the rest of us out from their downtown, they'd probably be very, very happy with all of that. I just I find this whole notion, and welcoming means it's a step below. If you call yourself a sanctuary city, and I hope that's not what they're really trying to get here, but if you call yourself a sanctuary city, the federal government will take all federal aid away from you, or at least a large portion of it. So I think a lot of these places are adopting this welcoming city, thinking, well, see, it's a semantical game. It's like saying, you're looking at a shirt that's I don't know, purple, and then calling it, mauve or Concord or something like that, and saying, no, it's not. I had a boss. He had an old 1950 Studebaker that he had restored, and we used to call it his purple car, and he would say, it's Concord. No, dude, it's purple. And I know, but politicians, they're all sitting around saying, gee, if this pleases the editorial board, I guess we should do it. And we want everybody to know that we're civilized too. And I need to give you a big hug. And then they'll put up some signs at the edge of town that read Welcoming City. And by the way, look at all of our ugly housing stock. I'm sure that makes you feel really, really welcome. Please come here and live. In fact, we've got a really dirt cheap apartment over here. Well, relative, to what you might have paid somewhere else. California, maybe. You come live here, you'll have a leaky roof and everything else, but we love you. Do you love me too? One more half hour of our program ahead. It's 43 right now. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. An update on this Syrian situation in a few minutes. Rex Tillerson is in Russia this morning. At first I thought he was wearing a yarmulke, and then I realized that portion of his head, his hair is actually darker there than it is around the edges. One other note about this welcoming cities, and then I've got to move on because we're kind of coming down to crunch time here in the program today. If you didn't hear it, we had the representative in yesterday, the Grand Poobah, the big cheese from the Boy Scout Council that covers a region hundreds of miles north and south and hundreds of miles east and west. And mainstream media, because of course they want you to understand how this works, are telling you that it's the Boy Scouts behind this welcoming city proposal. So when you read those stories, you look at those and you say to yourself, wow, that's a really large organization, and they help little old ladies across the street. I don't know. We should go along with them because we wouldn't want to offend the Boy Scouts. And so you've got a scout leader in town who said he did this as a project for his scouts because they had to counteract conservative media. I wonder who he's talking about. They had to counteract conservative media. There are school teachers across this country who don't like the politics of the President of the United States, and little kids will come into class, and they'll tell the kids, today we're going to draw a picture of President Trump with horns on his head and a pitchfork because he's the devil. And then you can take the pictures home and hang them on the refrigerator. And when your neighbors come over and raid your refrigerator, they can see what a good person you are because you recognize the president as the devil. Except parents don't agree with all of that 100%. And administrators have had to back off and say, look, we're not allowing teachers to promote their own personal politics and belief systems in class. So you have a local troop leader who has decided, and I think the troop is based at College of Southern Idaho. You wonder what they'd have at stake here in this game. The local troop leader comes out and says, oh, the Boy Scouts are promoting this. But as it turns out, the Grand Poobah, the big cheese of the entire council that stretches hundreds of miles north and south and hundreds of miles east and west, who was in studio with us yesterday, said, nope, this is not an official Boy Scout effort. In other words, you have a scout leader who's gone off the reservation. And I don't know that the public is getting that because I think the folks in mainstream media are trying to portray it as all Boy Scouts and that as if somehow the Boy Scouts of America are actually approving of this. And it ain't the case. 44. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio. Look, I'll take one call on this. As I said, I've got to move along. We've got a lot to talk about this morning. But I'll take one call on this at this moment. It's 44 right now. You're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Good morning, Bill. Hey,
Go
I was
ahead.
trying to call in yesterday, but you had a lot of topics to talk about, and
Sure.
got a lot covered yesterday. This whole thing, I read that article, and I understand that the
the boys have to go to city council meetings for some of their merit badges. They have to participate, stuff like that. However, this is something, if the boys wanted to introduce it, they should have gone about that way. And from what the city council members themselves are saying, yeah, Twin Falls has been, we've been welcoming refugees for decades already. I don't think that it has to be an official statement and declaration that we're going to be a welcoming city, because I think that opens us up for more liberal ideology.
Well,
Look what Boise did a while ago.
there are some members of that council that are flaming liberals.
Oh, absolutely. The mayor himself is an extreme liberal.
You've
But
got
there was one city council member that voted against the proposition on the same stance that I have, is we don't need an official declaration to make us a welcoming city in Twin Falls. We do enough as it is. We're not against taking the refugees and the programs. The city, that's what the city stance is, but we don't need to make an official declaration.
We'll see where it goes. And I thank you, because they'll face a lot of pressure from all of the screaming memes at the local college, and as well as newspaper editorials saying, "Oh, but we need to do this. It's the right thing to do." Because of my degree in theology and my time at seminary, I know right from wrong. And as I sit here and write this editorial, I'm going to preach to all of you about what we need to do. So you put up a sign, and what does that do? Does it actually make anybody more welcoming? Will that end bar fights and drug dealing? And oh, I see. So what's the point? Maybe the Boy Scouts could just say that Twin Falls should, I don't know, adopt the apple dumpling as the official snack of Twin Falls. No, that would be a waste of time too, but at least they'd see how the legislative process works, and you wouldn't have to deal with a political firestorm. I'm telling you, we've got politicians out there who are running scared because of a dying medium. 9:38, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 46. Before we wrap up this segment, and then I want to talk a little bit about Syria and that situation in a couple of minutes. Donald Trump said in an interview with Maria Bartiromo of Fox Business Network that Assad was nothing more than an animal. The rhetoric is pretty strong. You wouldn't hear that out of most politicians, because their advisors would be saying, well, parse it this way. Donald Trump doesn't have a governor on him like that. At least I'm not necessarily happy with the decision last week, but at least he doesn't bend to political correctness. Also wanted to mention our friends at Waddell & Reed this morning, located here in Twin Falls. This is an investment firm that's been doing this since 1937. Waddell & Reed, one of the oldest firms in the country to offer mutual funds. Waddell & Reed owns and manages 2 mutual fund families. These are people who know what they're doing. Hey, 8 decades of business. And we wanted to point out that they'll take a planning approach and look at each piece of the puzzle for clients. Waddell & Reed will try to address your goals and your needs. Waddell & Reed helps build proper expectations, helps you manage money, and at Waddell & Reed, they take planning personally. It's 9:40. You're listening to News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Top Story with Bill Colley.